Well, welcome. My name is John. Hello, everyone. Welcome every participants here in the studio, on the screen, at home, or at any other location. Joining us today for our first engagement at the Munich Creative Business Week. And also a cordial welcome to our group of graduate students from the Macromedia University, dialing in from their homes. So here in the studio, I have Stefanie, senior lecturer and also design educator, and Christiane, our corporate learning consultant from Steelcase, together with us, who will be sharing their professional perspectives. In fact, when we founded our nonprofit association, State of Design, with a common vision to connect various stakeholders from education, art, technology, and provide an interdisciplinary and cross-disciplinary platform, we wanted really to build up this with the intention to create a positive outlook and with a positive attitude. Actually, when you read the news today, it is easy to get depressed, as the world is faced today with very serious problems. It is determined by volatile, uncertain, complex corona, and also certainly ambiguities. So we deliberately chose the title Ready to Thrive in the VUCCA World to convey a positive feedback and also a positive outlook to see what is ahead of us. So we will need to take and keep the wider perspective, as we are still living, after all, in a period of opportunities and chances. So before I head to our participants and hear their insights, I'd like to thank the team of Bayern Design, and in particular Tanja, for asking us to be part of this MCBW this year. So in collaboration with the Graduate School of Macromedia University in Munich, we have been working on current issues in design, and we felt that the topics and the themes of education and the future skill sets are more than relevant. So therefore, I'd like to introduce you to Adelaide from the US and also Zari from Indonesia, who have been conducting a very thorough research on the future of skill set and talents. So Adelaide, I'd like to head over to you and ask you to share your insights on your research that you have conducted together with Zari.
Hello, everyone. As John said, I'm Adelaide, and I worked with my partner, Sari, on trying to research and understand the talents and skill sets that are going to be valued in the future. So, of course, in our 4 months of research, we couldn't get a perfect and complete view of the situation as it is or as it will be. So we decided to condense our research to focus on particularly the workforce in the future. As design management students, we know that professionally we want to act as creative consultants. So this seemed like a good start for us. To get a deep understanding of this, we did a lot of reading, many one-on-one interviews with students, managers, employees, HR psychology students, and more. And we also looked at LinkedIn. We saw how companies were marketing themselves and detailing the roles prospective employees are going to play in their companies. We were really excited by the consistencies we found across the board. As we all know, things are changing drastically. Technology is getting smarter, and more so, technology is doing the technical elements of our jobs for us. But this does not mean the amount of responsibilities have lessened for employees. It really just means that it's changing. From our research, we found traditionally soft skills are valued in jobs now more than ever. Expectations now are that employees must be flexible, adaptable, communicative, fun to work with, and creative. In LinkedIn posts for almost every single job we looked at, it listed these things before they even started to describe the job or the technical requirements for the job. When we asked people in interviews, what is your ideal employee? These things were mentioned across the board. And in most cases, these things were mentioned without even saying anything about technical skills at all. This was very shocking to us, I think. And the fact that financial consultants we talked to mentioned flexibility and not math skills and things they're looking for in employees was really surprising to us. So at first, this seemed really positive. We felt like it meant that more people will be able to do more jobs that they might not have been able to even a few years ago. While this could be the case, unfortunately, we also found that the way the system is in place right now makes it so much more difficult for prospective employees, and it also really hinders people who are already employed. I mean, how can a person ensure that who they're hiring today will be able to meet the demands of the job in 5 years when things are changing as quickly as they are? Not to mention, how is someone looking for a job supposed to market themselves as flexible? How do you even develop something like flexibility as a skill? This has so many negative outcomes as it is today. It leads to employees being unfit for their jobs, feeling insecure in their jobs. Job turnover is really high right now, and it hinders innovation in companies. So from all of this research and all of these findings, we came up with 3 main questions. Firstly, in finding that hard skills are no longer enough for employees to have when entering a job, how can someone searching for a job effectively develop and market their soft skills? Secondly, how can employers effectively look for long-term employees? And lastly, how can companies and employees learn to adapt for longevity in jobs? So this seems very daunting, and they are huge problems, but fortunately, they are all solvable problems. We really thought about this, and we were able to condense all of these conflicting ideas and aspects into one pretty basic principle. If a person can learn to learn, they will be able to remain valuable and remain a good contributor in almost any job. So how do we even begin to address this? We're asking that people, companies, institutions, that they start to understand value, and what someone is hired for does not necessarily need to be their job description forever. And in understanding a person's true value and an employee's value, you're able to understand their full range of skills and potential. So this changes how companies can work with employees to adapt these skills and develop new skills within their market. Keeping pace with the changing scenes of the future is critical, and this is a great way to do it. So in looking at skills development, this is really what it all comes down to, how skills are developed. We see that there are 3 major contributors. It's the employees, the employers, and the education system. If you think about it, starting from the 1st grade, schools are preparing the future of the workforce. Education systems will have to change and adapt to implement programs that focus on learning to learn and developing that as a skill, and also development of social skills. But we also learned that skills development should not stop after traditional schooling. This is where we feel like design managers can really change the face of the workforce. They can help companies predict trends and implement education system within companies that will allow employees to take on new roles, new means of innovation, and new levels of confidence in their jobs. If companies can connect to their employees and are willing to see them outside of their original roles, this will benefit everyone, and it can be so lucrative for companies. So to sum this all up, we feel the ultimate desirable talent and skill necessary to thrive in the workforce of the future is to be able to adapt and to learn. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Adelaide, for sharing this, and it actually resonates quite well to really to highlight the technology part of it, and being savvy in this field is definitely one of the skill sets that we have also seen in our research. And so let me pose a hypothesis here before I head over to the next group. So I think most future users of AI technology do not have sufficient insight, and this in turn makes it hard for people to trust. Makes it hard for people to trust the technology, learn from it, and to be able to correctly predict future situations. So our international students, Charlotte from the UK, Ali from Iraq, and also Ray from Japan, have been conducting a very comprehensive research on the topic of AI and its impact on education. And yeah, I would like to hand over to you guys to also share some of your findings with the audience here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hi everyone, I'm Charlotte and this is Ali and Ray. And together we worked on a project at the university looking at AI and its impact on education. So the topic that we decided to focus on, the design question that we researched, was how does our early experience in school, the motivation that we have to do well, and the confidence that we gain impact our ability to learn later on in life? And how can AI help with this process? So a lot of, I think, what we uncovered overlaps with what Adelaide was just saying about our need and the importance of being able to continue to learn and to learn how to learn. So the focus on this topic came about as early discussions that we had amongst ourselves about our own experiences in school and how particularly the more perhaps negative experiences that we had with subjects where we struggled more and we were demotivated, we all agreed that those experiences that we had impacted our confidence with those subjects to date even, and perhaps even still have an impact on how we approach those subjects or how we feel about our own abilities with those subjects. So we felt that this was something that was really personal to us in our own experiences of school. And so we decided to focus on this topic, and we conducted secondary research, finding a huge number of research projects and studies that had been conducted in this area. And we also spoke to specialists who told us about their own personal and professional experiences of the impact that motivation can have, particularly in early education. So one of the specialists that we spoke to particularly emphasized how having confidence in lifelong learning is crucial in the very fast-paced world that we are in now, in the way that information is rapidly changing and constantly being updated or being outdated. And he emphasized how AI can have a really crucial part to play in keeping that information up to date and providing the right people with personalized information at the right time in order to support their own learning process and their own ways of learning as well. So what we did was we took all of the research that we had done and we looked at two real-world uses of AI, and we looked at how they could be combined to create a solution that helps to address some of the key hurdles with motivation in early education. And Ali is going to talk in a minute in more detail about the more technical side of how that works. But one key thing that we want to stress and that we stressed in our paper was the good and the bad side of using AI in education. So we discuss a lot the ethical questions, particularly around the use of data. When data's involved with young people, it's very sensitive. The handling of the data has to be considered very sensitively. But we also thought about the actual experience of bringing AI into the classroom, both from the learner and the teacher's point of view. And given that AI usually, in nearly all circumstances, requires some kind of physical device, a computer or a tablet, how that experience of learning actually impacts the way that we're able to engage students. And one of the specialists that we spoke to told us in detail about her experience teaching online during the pandemic and some of the key ways that they had to or tried to engage and keep students engaged whilst online. So we want to, I think, show our support for using AI in education, but with the caveat that it's crucial to be aware of the downsides, particularly when designing solutions from the start to overcome those potential hurdles.
Okay, so hello again, everyone. I am Ali, and I just want to talk to you more about the technical side of AI and our proposed solution. So through our research, we focused on two key problems that we believe lead to student demotivation. The first one is the current educational system is not personalized. That means all students, regardless of their grades, skills, they will receive the same information in the same way. Teachers, of course, will try to be as inclusive as possible, but eventually it will be too fast for some students or too slow for others. The other problem we noticed was the disengagement inside the class. Some students might have like great grades, but the content or the delivery method from the teachers might not be as engaging as they need to be. Teachers will, of course, try to improve it all the time, but they simply cannot monitor all students because they have a class to give. So with those two problems in mind, we propose the following solution. First, an AI-generated curriculum that is a content that is personalized based on the student background. And the AI will determine what the students need to learn and what the students will have learned, and then will recommend the content accordingly. And as it goes on, the AI algorithm will improve and then gradually will recommend content specific to that student's needs or skills. The other problem, which was the disengagement, we proposed a solution with an AI that can monitor all students inside the classroom, maybe through a camera, and then it can measure the engagement of the students inside the class, and then it will determine which delivery methods from the teacher matches best to the students. And then the teacher will have like a summary of their methods, and then they will improve their delivery methods accordingly. As Charlotte mentioned, there were like a lot of technical sides and ethical issues with AI, but we believe the advantages of AI in educational system outcome the disadvantages. So how far are we within the real world to those solutions? We're actually not that far. So there is a company called Alex, which offer an AI that can recommend personalized content in education. The AI can do so by asking the students 10 questions in a particular subject, and then it will measure their time to respond, accuracy, other factors, maybe like age, and then it will compare their answers to very large previous student answer. And then it will put them in a cluster, and then it will sketch a rough idea about the student background. The power of this idea comes that the AI algorithm can recommend content based on the student's feedback. Where I mean, if the student is answering too comfortably, too quickly, and too accurately, the AI will recommend a more intensive courses in that particular subject. On the other hand, if the student is answering too slowly or too inaccurate, the AI will recommend a slower paced content. And so on the long run, it will be like acting like a personal tutor to that student by recommending content that's very personalized to that student. For the disengagement, there is actually a company in China called ALO7. They are teaching Chinese students English, and they use an AI algorithm through a camera, I believe, in the class to measure the engagement of each student. So the AI can do so by measuring how many times a student smile, ask a question, or engage in general. And then they will provide a summary to the teacher so he can like improve his delivery method or catch out early students who got demotivated in the start. So all in all, we are actually close to what we proposed, but slightly a little bit different. But we just want to like stress out a few key points. Like first, we are not like trying to implement a new solution. The technology is already there, but we are trying to look into how we can combine it from two different companies, two different ideas, and integrate them to the educational system so we can solve the problems with demotivation.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing and providing your kind of perspectives and your point of views on this. I would actually like to hand over to our professionals who have been working in this field of business for quite some time already. Stefanie, what is your take on this?
Well, thank you first for your presentations, and I think this could fill a whole afternoon or a whole whole day to talk about, especially what's happening, what happened in education in the last 14 months and what's happening going forward. And I think we almost have to seize the moment and really thinking proactively in looking, very much in the future in terms of education, and to really that's an opportunity. I mean, as a designer, I think one thing is that we always say we'll turn every problem into an opportunity. So we approach it with a level of optimism, and I think we have to do that with education as well. And really kind of embrace and to be proactive to rethink our future offerings as well in education. And I think if I listen to both of your presentations, it's really the learn to learn. And I think both, whether the first presentation also what you were talking about, how we can use AI as a tool, because in the end, I think we need to understand that technology is a tool and it basically lives in the physical world, and it's also transport values. So as an educator and also maybe an educational institution, I think you need to be very clear about what are the values you want technology to transport if you are basically using technology. And I think we've done a lot of learnings in the last at least I did a lot of learnings, and I think also how we maybe teach and how we collaborate with the students. So students are no longer students, I think they are partners. And also with technology, I think you can make them partners, and students can really become part of also teaching and educating each other much more than maybe before. And it used to be a very kind of, linear process. You would enter a school or a university, then there was an educator, and then you would graduate and would move into kind of the workforce. And now I think it's a much more iterative process where we basically, we learn to learn, we're lifelong learners, meaning that once you graduate from an education institution, you're not done, and you have to basically continue to learn. And I think that's really interesting in terms of companies, because companies are becoming an educational system as well, and they play a role. And I think it's going to be interesting how maybe the educational system is not separated from the work environment, and it's much more integrated, and it much maybe goes both ways. And I think as universities and as educators, I think we also have to, it's much more integrated, and we probably also have to respond with a much more agile kind of curriculum to allow for a lifelong learning and to create these lifelong relationships and educational relationships.
Yep. Yeah. So speaking for my position or for my role within STCase, what we'd really tried to understand or learned in the last 14 months or since the pandemic, it only speeded up a little bit our thinking already that we have a continuous learning path. So we don't stop with the onboarding and then you're done and then you're fit to be a good employee. But we have to do this continuous learning, and we also understood social learning is crucial. So in our data, we found that people ask the colleague first before they come to a teacher or a trainer. So we really encourage peer training or peer-to-peer coachings, leveraging all the assets within a company, as well as we are learning about online platforms. We understood that we are in a virtual life now. So this makes learning scalable and accessible. And I think that's also something that is really helpful for us. We can, really reach our global network of learners much easier. Since we're still, I know we're lacking sometimes the personal interaction, but we also understand we can really use it to our advantage to have this long learning, lifelong learning, global learning, have peers from all over the world to kind of help each other and support each other in their new functions. So we really, what you said about learn to learn and the motivational part really resonates very much what we try to do in our learning environment at the moment. So it really...
Yeah, and I think you cannot just transfer basically the curriculum or the existing thing, what maybe we were trying to do, right? In the last 12 months, we just overnight, we had to basically move from in-person teaching to online teaching, and the tools available to us used to be more used as a filing cabinet, but now we really have to kind of rethink our content. We have to really carefully evaluate what is basically what is good for online learning, maybe what, how we use the technology. Maybe we have to even rewrite some of the curriculum, and really also understand moving forward. We are all talking about hybrid education models, and I think not because it might happen in the time in between we go back to normal, but I think it's there to stay, and because it allows for accessibility and also connectivity, but also that I think what will happen online and what will happen on campus will have to be carefully evaluated, and I think there's a huge opportunity to say what needs to be in person and what can be online. And I think in the workplace it's very similar.
It's very similar.
It's not so much different.
Yeah, totally. So the same thing we understand about coming back to the office, where collaboration, the interaction is the crucial part why I come into the office. This will be the same for learning experiences. I think we will do the peer coaching and a lot of this experimental way of learning, make it also relevant, work relevant, will happen, perhaps on campus or face-to-face, and some of the more, focus learning where you have some things some theories perhaps to understand or to dive into, you can do that from home. So definitely we have a hybrid, the same as in the workspace, we have a hybrid version of learning now, and I see a lot of advantages with it because this, as we said, the scalability is there, the accessibility is there. We're reaching much more people in our organization, which is a global company. So we have learners all over the globe. And I just had a call where I had definitely people having from Asia, the US, and myself. So this is a range we never were able to reach, and people wouldn't accept any teaching environment being virtual. So I think there's a lot also we can take as a positive. As you said, we want to be positive about it, and that's our vision. I think there's a lot positive aspects to it to be able to really scale and get a broader audience to talk to each other, to learn from each other. So I see a lot of positiveness in this approach.
Stefanie, how would you see, or how would you envision, let's say, the future of an educator as not being the person standing in front of your, let's say, students? How would you see, how would that evolve actually in the future?
I think it's an interesting question. What I teach creativity and design thinking to now predominantly students who don't have a design background. So I currently teach at the MBA program at Cornell Tech. I have, students with different backgrounds, engineers, accounting, wealth management, as well as healthcare. And so I already don't teach basically standing in front of the class, but really teach, collaborating with them almost like in a studio-based setting. But I think it's going to be interesting how the classes or maybe the teaching changes for more in-front teaching, that maybe the lecturing will happen much more online, right? And the kind of more collaborative projects, working in student teams, that will more happen on campus. But also with a hybrid, you will have always students now, joining from abroad. So you have to accommodate that as well. But I think that's no different than moving into the workforce. So I think there's a huge opportunity, and I think we all had a reality check as well of what we imagined we could do with technology. And now I think within like a very kind of speedy process, we're realizing where technology can be extremely supportive, and maybe where we hit the wall or where we are limited through technology. And I think that almost it's humanizing. It's a moment as well to really use technology in a way where it's really at its best, but understand where we need the in-person relationships and interpersonal kind of moments, interactions. Yeah.
Christiane, I'm also very curious to know more about, let's say, the corporate setup that you are facing now, let's say, within this current circumstances, I would say, with COVID. How do you leverage technology in this regards, and how is, let's say, Steelcase preparing, let's say, corporate learning for this kind of situation?
We're in the midst of organizing that. I mean, we were also shifted overnight to our face-to-face learnings into virtual ones. So we're using the typical, Teams and Zooms and whatever you have, and happy now about breakout rooms and whatever, where we can have a little more engaging training sessions, perhaps. At this stage, we also use data more also to understand the needs. What do we want to? What is there out to teach, perhaps. So, for example, what we learned by data that people would ask a peer before they come to us. So that's something what we try to understand, how to help these needs. So we're using, at this stage, we're not using, we're more trying to understand the data to get give an insight of the needs of the company and leverage then technology with it. But we are not yet using AI. That's all something in our near future, I hope. But we realize what I at least really enjoy seeing the reach, that I reach more people, that the online is accepted, things we didn't expect before. I think the learning curve inside of the company was much bigger than we expected, because we have done a lot of virtual trainings and reach much more people than we would have done before. So I see that's mainly very basic technology we are still using, but it helped us to be more meaningful and faster, and that's also something, faster and adaptable, agile to the needs of our company with the shifting of what's happening in the pandemic. So the technology is really at this stage a very basic technology, meaning Teams or whatever virtual online platforms we use.
Thanks so much for sharing. Very short here. I really like your personal stories and your perspectives on that. And if I have to conclude this, I feel very privileged actually. And we talked about this whole aspect of accessibility, right? So I mean, we are so privileged to have access to proper education and to have all those kind of opportunities to initiate and to shape the change, right? So actually, I would like to finally to ask again the students Ray and Sari to give us also their kind of opinion on one thing that you think is needed and required in order to thrive in the VUCCA world. So maybe Sari, you can share with us your final kind of statement.
Okay, thank you, John. In my opinion, to highlight how to thrive in a VUCCA world, we have to be able to adapt. So learning to learn is the key, is the best solution in the changing world, because adaptable person is employable person. So yeah, the keyword is learning to learn. Thank you.
Thank you. Ray, what do you think? Yes.
Great, that's our cue code. So basically, just like Charles introduced about the importance of motivation in the role of education and how AI, especially its technology, can be used in this education, just explained by Ali here. We also conclude that the adaptability would be the skill for this ready to thrive in this new world, VUCCA world we are experiencing. Because this adaptability is a skill to change this fast-paced world and adapt such situations to individual needs. And because we believe that motivation plays an important role in the education, especially in the juvenile age, or more easily word, in the younger time, the education in young time, we say that the AI's technology of adjusting the data to personal usage and that of reading the people's emotion and driving it would give the students more time and more easy or freedomness to focus on their studies, which would lead to the continuous lifelong learning, just we all talked about today. So we believe our short presentation today would support the fact that adaptability would be the necessary skill, or not skill, but more for like the confidence that we face would be ready to thrive in this VUCCA world in this today's session.
Great, thank you for that. Maybe Stefanie, you might also want to...
Well, I was just thinking what I'm going to, I was just thinking why I teach. I mean, I think teaching for me, because I'm also a consultant, is it keeps me on my toes, and it often, I mean, takes me out of my comfort zone as well, because every time, you know, every new students and students now have come with a lot of knowledge, and I think that's maybe when you think about, you know, a lifelong learning. For me, teaching is a lifelong learning, and I think I constantly have to move out of my comfort zone. And I think if you the willingness to do that, moving forward, the willingness to always, you know, get out of your comfort zone, learn something new. I think that hopefully allows you to stay agile, to adapt, and to really embrace what's there in the future.
Yes.
Yeah, very, very similar to what I think. So my two words were curiosity and openness. I think being curious is definitely, and that's my third C in our abbreviation of VUCCA. I think be curious is also means that you think about something different, that you think out of your box, to name a typical wording, and being open to learn something new, to understand it changes. And I think we also realize with the social media we tend to follow one opinion and are not open anymore for different opinions and different ideas and trends. And I think that is very crucial to stay open for different impacts, for different opinions, trends, and these two things, curiosity and openness, is my two solutions, perhaps, or my two words to take home.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I think we have covered almost everything now. So unless there's some more questions, maybe also from your side that you would like to discuss, or any questions to the students that you would like to address?
Well, maybe, you know,
Yeah.
kind of playing it back to you. I mean, the lifelong learning, right? When you are, you know, right now you're students and you're probably eager to get out and graduate. How do you perceive this idea that you're not done? You will, you know, this is by graduating right now, you're not done. It's just maybe just the beginning of much more learning to do. I mean, what's your take on that?
I think I can say for me, it's a comforting feeling. I feel like this opens up so much more possibility in my career than just going into a job and this is my job and it is what it is. I guess it is an exciting thought that things could change and develop and there's room for growth in whatever I could do. It's exciting for me.
Yeah, I think it's same for me. Like it's very exciting to out of the comfort zone and learning something new. It's super interesting.
Great. Ali, what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, okay, thank you. So from my perspective, really it opens a possibility that there will be always new jobs and new vacations for people who are looking for jobs. Because if it is like we need to learn even after graduation, it means there will be new places, new companies that will hire us. So we just need to keep with it. Learning to get a job is like, I guess it's a very nice possibility. Do you guys have any?
No, I completely agree. I think having done my bachelor's and then gone and worked in the real world for a few years and now coming back to studying, I've definitely learned as much in the time that I was actually in a job as I have when I've been in education. I think, like Adelaide said, I think that's a really comforting thing that we can continue to adapt and learn and find new things. And I'm doing something now that I never would have probably seen myself doing a few years ago as a result of everything that I learned in my job. So I think it's a really exciting and a really comforting thing. Do you have anything to add?
Basically same with all the five of us, but I would like to stress that or at least my personal opinion, would be that because all of us, at least on our team, would sometimes at least had one time of experiencing in the actual workplace of using our bachelor's or the studies we have done in university. And at least I can say, what we have learned is not completely related to the first career we have taken as the first step choice.
Absolutely.
And as going back, just like Charlotte said, going back to the educational background, educational field would, at least for me, I think that they would gave me a view of how this study that we are doing would lead to the next career or next work or more like what for my stage into the life stage or lifelong learning in the stage of this stage would be used in this real world, and it's that of the changing this VUCCA uncertainty, ambiguous world we face. So at least it's gonna be more, how can I say, more harsh, realistic view towards the education that we are facing or we are taking in this current time. And I'm really happy to say what kind of skill I would be getting and to utilize it in when this 2 years of graduate school is over.
I think it's also wonderful because you're all coming from different backgrounds and you're all coming from different cultures. And I think, learning from each other, I think is one thing I would encourage everyone to embrace. And that's, an amazing thing, what I think with education moving forward, that it is accessible, that we actually can create a much more inclusive and also diverse environment for education, and meaning like that, and also learning from each other in many different ways, which I think is the beauty of moving forward and using technology in a very positive way.
Yeah, fantastic.
Wonderful.
So again, I want to thank everyone joining us today for this very brief roundtable. I would say there's so much more to discuss and to talk about, and we really hope that we have kind of created some stimulation and some kind of food for thought here for all the upcoming discussions around design and education and how we can kind of thrive and embrace the change. So again, thank you everyone here, and wishing you all a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.